Good morning, fellow crafters. This is Betty Traciak from kittystamp.blogspot.com, and today I have a tutorial for the disappearing 9 patch. This is a project that I have adapted from quilting, in which you take 9 pieces of fabric or 9 pieces of paper that have been joined together and then cut that vertically and horizontally. And then once you rearrange that in a variety of different ways, you can incorporate those into some of your projects. So let's get started on that. You need 9 squares of scrapbook paper cut to the same size. You can cut those in a variety of ways. You can use a paper trimmer, you can use any square die or any square punch. What I've used for this demonstration, I'm using 1-inch squares which have been cut with the punch. Arrange the papers into a 3x3 grid. I found that I like it if I have an alternating light and dark pattern. Also, this piece in the center is going to be cut into 4 small pieces, so it works quite well. I have found to have that be a bold color. Also, if you have a image that you do not wish to have cut up, you can put that into one of the 4 corners, because the 4 corners will not be cut. Next, take a piece of adhesive sheet that is just slightly smaller than the size of your grid. For example, this is going to be a 3x3 grid, so I cut this just slightly smaller than a 3x3. I like to use the adhesive sheet because it gives you an overall adhesive. An alternative, if you do not have an adhesive sheet, you can use just a piece of scrap paper, anything that's like just a typing paper weight, and you can cover that with a glue and stick everything over the top. So I just take the adhesive sheet and put this down in a grid. I put it just slightly over the edge. And carefully, I take a little bit of time in aligning each one of these up. It also works quite well to use a Tombow glue for this, because that gives you a little bit more wiggle room. If you use the adhesive sheets, you do have to be fairly precise in the first time you stick those down, because you cannot get those back up again. So I ended up with just a little bit left over here. I'm going to grab a scissors and trim that off so that that does not get stuck into my paper trimmer. Next, bring in the paper trimmer, and this is going to get cut into half, both vertically and diagonally. This is a 3x3, so then I will be cutting this at 1.5 inches in both directions. Then I just turn these and cut both of these at 1.5. And then once you have these cut, then you can decide what order you would like to put them in. You can play around to see what pattern works well. One idea is you can leave them as they are and just explode that and mount that on a different colored piece of paper so that you have a design that looks like that. Another alternative is to turn it with all of the small corners to the outside. Or turn 2 of the corners to the middle. So there's lots of different ways that you can put it together. It depends upon what you would like your design to look like. got a little bit of adhesive on my fingers, so they're kind of sticking as I'm doing this. Once I have figured out what arrangement I would like to have, I like to use Tombow glue and cover a piece of cardstock or another piece of scrapbook paper that is just, again, slightly smaller than my finished design. And the advantage again of the Tombow is that I can move these around and get these into position. Gives you a little bit of time to play with it and manipulate that. Once this is dry, this can be added to any of your projects. A couple of other things that I wanted to point out in making this. If you use the adhesive sheets, these are sticky on both sides. So if you had a project that was going to be handled a lot, you might want to choose a different method, say either glue or something else to be holding this down. But I found that this really stays very secure. Even once I've cut this and manipulated it, particularly once it's then been glued down to a project, these do not come loose. On this project, I did use just a piece of typing paper and Tombow glue. When you do that, you need to make sure that you get the glue all over here. I can see that I have one space where this did not get glued down, so I'll need to go back and glue that before, because once you cut up all of these small pieces, these pieces could potentially come loose. The other thing that I discovered is that it's helpful to use a centering ruler sometimes when you're determining where you want to cut this in half. For example, this die is 1 5/8 inches. So each of these are 1 5/8. So you could add all of this up and do the math and figure out exactly what that center is. But I like to use a centering ruler. A centering ruler is where you have the 0 in the center and then it counts upward and counts down. And then you can just take that and align that so that you have the equal amounts on both sides. And then I just make a small pencil mark at the top and bottom, and then also on the sides. And then I can go back and erase that pencil mark afterwards. Part of the fun in doing this is that you can arrange these in quite a few different ways, so I wanted to show some of the ways that I have arranged these on my projects. In this case, I kept these two squares the same. If you look at these small squares here, flip these two around with the small square to the outside. What I like about this is it gave a nice secondary diagonal pattern. For this one here, I kept the small squares to the center in this center row, and sometimes it helps to look at whether or not you have one image or two that you'd like to have in an upright position. Helps you determine where you'd like those squares to be. For example, in this one, I wanted to have these two images near the top, and what that did was that left a nice space down here to be able to add another image that's popped up. The other thing that I like about this arrangement is that the small squares end up being random, and you can really see where if you use something that's a bold color, that gives a nice pop. For this one, which I have not completed yet, I kept all of the green squares to the center. I just flipped two of these around so that it would break up where these side pieces are. And I mounted that onto a different color of cardstock, just for a little bit different variation there. And on this one, which is a decor piece, I mounted this on a piece of heavier cardboard and this is an easel back, which is scored 1 inch down so that that's able to stand on its own. And for this case, I kept the small squares all to the outside. I hope you've enjoyed this, and we will see you very soon. Bye.